chorus right from the beginning. It sounds a little too happy. Can you make the dies irae a little more intense with the initial consonants? Dies irae. It's got to sound threatening. Once more, please. Beginning.
During the rehearsal, you have to be very clear because the time is limited. And so the first thing you have to do is to make sure that all the notes are right and that everybody is playing together. When the players all play with one will and agree on the interpretation, then you have success. A choir and an orchestra performing together can complement each other in a very strong and positive way. Firstly, the voices have a very direct contribution to make through the use of the words, and also in the way the choir sing can be influenced by the orchestra. I think most musicians, if you ask them, would put Mozart very high on the list of composers that they could spend their whole life with. Mozart says everything in an amazingly short time.
You worked hard for tonight. Are you ready, do you think?
Yes, I'm ready, yes. You can never foresee the difficulties which may arise in a performance, but that's what makes a live performance exciting.
What are you actually doing while you're up there, directing the choir and orchestra?
Firstly, trying to keep everybody together. It's a very basic thing, but it's important. And trying to make everybody feel the same about the music, get a general will in the music so we have one interpretation and not a lot of people trying to do different things. And hopefully inspire them, make it exciting.
When you were conducting, I noticed you didn't actually shout at them very much. You were demonstrating with your body and with your face. What were you trying to do?
Well, I didn't shout mainly because they were making so much noise they wouldn't hear me if I did. But yes, trying to get this feeling across them of tension and power and the awfulness of it all. Day of wrath. And it's not a terribly jolly subject, is it?
Do you make any allowance for the fact that you're working with extremely professional and experienced people?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I listen to them and they often make a contribution that I'm not expecting, or something is even more beautiful or more dramatic than I expected it to be. And so, of course, I use that.
There's room for it?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Mm.
Which do you prefer? Because you also work with people who aren't quite as experienced as they are.
I like both, but in different ways. For immediate excitement or urgency of performance, when the adrenaline really flows fast. I was going to say then that it's better to work with experienced people, but I don't know. It just depends on the performance. I've had some very exciting performances with people who can just about play their instruments.
David Coleman was born and brought up in a farming community in Kent. He learnt to play the cornet in the local Salvation Army band before going on to achieve success as a composer and conductor.
One person I have worked with a lot and I enjoy very much working with, that's Rudolf Nureyev. I've learned a great deal from him and I have a lot of respect for him. Certainly, he's not just a dancer, he has all the elements of making a performance, and that's what I appreciate.
What does he give you?
Oh, he inspires you, he challenges you all the time and he expects you to put as much effort into your contribution to the work as he does himself.
We met first time in London, I suppose, when I remember well, Greg had two young conductors, and said, well, which one would you like, you know, to conduct for your performances? And I heard David, and he seems to be the guy I wanted. For me, it's important that conductor knows what shape music have to be presented in. That one bar doesn't differ from the other. For me, I prefer when I see or I hear a clear pattern coming from orchestra pit, and I can judge it for myself how to phrase inside this pattern.
How do you relate to the conductor when you're on the stage?
When you're on stage, he's really have all the threads of your life, of your destiny in his hands. I mean, you can't in despair you can only raise your eyebrows or gasp in amazement and resign, because in most cases outcome of performance is really in hands of conductor. I did find working with David so well to such a degree that I imposed theaters to accept him wherever I went, if I had big seasons like at La Scala and in Paris and wherever.
So you have helped him become a conductor of ballet?
Well, I didn't begin him, I mean, but I definitely gave him a lot of chances.
And how would you rate him among the other conductors?
Well, I really don't know. I don't have this scale with me right now, rating. But I'm very pleased to work with him anytime there's a chance.
There's no one like Rudolf. I mean, Rudolf is Rudolf, and so I relate to him in a very different way from almost everybody else. But very directly. If we ask each other a question, in rehearsal it's always a brief answer, because you don't waste time explaining why I think something. And just in a very positive way, and trying to be sensitive all the time to the atmosphere, bearing in mind that rehearsal time must be used economically, and you can expend a lot of energy rehearsing, but when it comes to it, it's the performance that counts.
Is there a lot of discussion that goes on between dancers and musicians?
Discussions is a strange word to use in this case, because often the sort of discussion is, it's too fast, it's too slow, and I say, no, it's not, or just do it again. And this time, perhaps I'm giving away a trade secret, but a classic case is a dancer will say, it's much too fast, and I say, right, we'll do it again. I do it again, exactly the same speed, and I say, is that better? And they say, thank you, that's fine.
Vermouth, composed by David and described by him as a bit of this and a bit of that.
I think the most important part of music, as far as composing is concerned, is the part that you can't express in words. The notes on the page you can understand, but it's not possible to understand what brings the music to life. If you could understand that part of it, then there would be very little reason in having the piece of music.
That was a lot of fun, David. It's the first time I've heard it. Was it written for a particular audience?
No, it was a piece of music I wrote for myself. I set myself the problem of writing a piece of music for piano and using the percussive and rhythmic elements to the fore, so that the melodic element was not so important.
What happens when you have to write for somebody else's restrictions, in a way?
Well, to give you an example, I wrote a piece of music for Writers on Writing, which came before a program where people were talking to each other, conversations. And so the piece of music has to set up the feeling of what it's like when two people are talking, a certain reflective quality, one listening to the other, not too stimulating, but having that just listening quality and expectancy.
And how well did you achieve all that?
Well, when I saw the opening music with the pictures, I thought it worked quite well. With the accents at the beginning of each phrase. We need much more accent at bar 13 and also horns at 15, where we were just coming to. Once more, please. For me, whatever the music is going to be used for, whether it's for commercial purposes in terms of a television program, or whether it's for a concert, the way I approach both the writing of music and the conducting of it, I would say is exactly the same. I like really to be, have times to be quiet and think about what I'm doing. And at those times, it's very hard to do it in a nightclub or in a big restaurant or in the busy life of London. So it's necessary, really, to find peace. And I suppose you naturally look for those things. If you've had them when you were young as a child, then you go back to them. I was born and brought up in Kent, so the whole feeling of the countryside and the people there, I enjoy very much. And I often think it's very nice to go back to those what to me are simple things. The people have very simple connections with the countryside, and although it's close to London, it's very hard to believe that that countryside is so important. And those things I enjoy very much indeed.
And you go back still to work sometimes?
Oh yes, yes. I was recently working with the Kent Police Band, which rehearses in Maidstone, it is in Kent, but even not so much countryside, perhaps. Again, it's a town, but the countryside surrounding is what I think of when I think of Kent, really. One of my first musical experiences was playing the cornet, and so brass instruments have always had a very special interest to me. I don't know how the first contact came. I think the bandmaster just asked me if I would go to a rehearsal, because I used to play the trumpet. And so I went along to rehearsal, and I was very interested and impressed with what they did and the enthusiasm with which they do it. Brass instruments have a marvelous fundamental feeling about them. The music repertoire may be more limited, of course, than orchestral music, but there's a direct excitement that the players can experience. That's why I enjoy it.
Could be worse.
I didn't, as many people perhaps think, they want to be or must be a conductor. I didn't think of it like that. It's something that just happened. I think of it very much, it's my total life. I'm very interested in music. I'm totally fascinated by everything to do with music. Conducting is one aspect of it. And I wouldn't say I get emotional about it. I get totally involved in it. All my feelings go into it.
Principal dancers of the festival ballet in rehearsal for Swan Lake. Francine, David's wife, herself a dance teacher, looks on. The artistic director is John Field.
Stop there. Same old problem, David, I'm afraid. Music's rather fast, dancing slow. Can you do anything to help us?
Yes, all right. We'll take it just a little bit slower, but I think we shouldn't forget that when the orchestra's playing, the violin solo and the harp, it does sound quite a lot slower.
Yes.
It's a feeling, it sounds slower.
Well, we'll try, but it is a bit difficult for us at the moment.
We'll take it a little slower.
Right. Thank you very much. So, could we start, Lucia, when you're getting up much more smoothly, Nick, as you pull her up. And remember, front, second, in for the pirouette, and you must get to the fifth and the arabesque before the penché, and back to the arabesque before the smooth fondue. Yes? We'll try it again. And now, if we've got it a little bit slower, it should help you a bit. Yes?
3 notes before?
Yes. Remember the arms. Now smooth. Yes. Better. One. The 2 positions, remember. Second in, out. Now back to the arabesque. Then the fondue. And 1. All right. Better, yes? More comfortable? All right, David?
Good, that's fine. Yeah.
Right, now time's getting on. I think we should cut to the lifts, because I would like to see them, yes? So if we go to the second lift.
Right. 2 bars in. When you're listening to the rehearsal piano, that's very different from an orchestra. And the sound of a solo violin can't really be repeated on a piano. It's a completely different sound. So one has to use little tricks in the rehearsal to create a similar effect. For example, give much more time at the end of a phrase. So if you like, you just suspend the speed for a few parts of a second, and then you move on. You wouldn't do that with an orchestra, but it would have the same feeling.
Yes. Up. Cut. All right, so that's it. Thank you. Look. Good, better. I still see this neck, and it should be inclined and not...
I've thought very carefully about the music before I come to any rehearsal, and I think, without trying to be too rigid, I stick quite closely to how I really am convinced it should go.
6, lift, 2, 3, better, smoother. Now the character's coming. Yes. Now, could we just have a word with David? You know that we have this problem again, that they seem to be dragging, and I know that you're reluctant to make it slow. Is there anything we can do?
I think this time they've got to try to anticipate, because the violin sounds so bad if it's slower.
You're going to be firm about it, are you?
So, yes.
So, Nick and Lucia, we have to anticipate a little more. You have to get there just a little bit earlier, Lucia, and Nick a bit higher on the lift, yes? All right. Then I think now we should go...
I've noticed that in most of the rehearsals we've been to with you, your wife Francine has been with you too. How useful do you find that?
Useful? Maybe she should answer that. Well, she comes whenever she can. I mean, she has a genuine interest as a friend, and it's nice to have somebody there who has an objective point of view, really, and she can remind me of things, or, well, it's just nice to have somebody there who's interested.
I do like to come and watch him. We talk about what he does quite a lot at home.
All right.
And if I come and actually see it, well, the discussions are more useful to him, I think, and more interesting for me. honestly. I suppose very often my judgment is unbalanced by the fact that I'm very concerned for him to make it work in the way he wants it. But if he asks me a question about the work itself or his performance, I try to answer honestly.
Does the professional side of both your lives intrude, do you think, into your own personal relationship?
Well, it is our lives. It's very hard to separate it. Sometimes something David's doing or something I'm doing is inconvenient for the other one. We don't always manage to rest at the same time and have breaks, but our life surrounds work, it absorbs work, and work surrounds our leisure, so it's hard to separate it.
Very smooth, the bourrée, very tiny, smooth, yes. On the heel, Lucia, not on the instep. Remember now, it must go from the fourth to the second before the pirouette. And in, yes? Yeah. Now, lift the knee. Lift. Right. Better. Now, smoothly. Don't get late. Be with it. There.
You've reached a marvellous stage of performance now. You've worked with some of the finest artistes in the world. Where do you see yourself going in the future?
It's very, very difficult to say. I just want really to go on conducting and getting as much experience working with different kinds of music as I can. I'd like very much to develop conducting on the concert platform. That's very, in a way, it's very connected to conducting in the theatre, but of course without the visual is the orchestra. Everybody's looking at the orchestra and the conductor. And I suppose there are aspects of conducting on a concert platform which to a certain extent you don't have to be so careful about when you're conducting in the pit. I don't mean to say you don't have to take care what you're doing, but the audience expect to see the conductor performing. Whether or not that is right, I'm not sure, but when you're on the concert platform, there are other things that you have to take into account than just the orchestra.